welcome you watching News 9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's get you all the top national and international stories that we're tracking at this hour. The war between Israel and Hamas has entered the 42nd day. Let's get you a complete lowdown on the developments of the last 24 hours. Israel's defense minister has announced the next stage of the offensive in Gaza. Israeli forces for now have withdrawn from Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza. That's what reports seem to suggest. Meanwhile, the body of an Israeli hostage was found in a building near Al-Shifa hospital. This was declared earlier today by the Israeli Defense Forces. The woman was a mother of 5 whose husband had been killed by the Hamas terrorists during the 7th October massacre. The United Nations is looking for ways to evacuate Al-Shifa hospital. Many, including patients and staff, are still trapped there. Civilians in Gaza currently face an immediate possibility of starvation. That is what the UN's food program has said. At least 11,500 Palestinians have been killed so far in the Israel-Hamas war, though these are figures that were put out by the Palestinian Health Ministry more than 4 days ago. There is currently a communication blackout in Gaza. The Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza has been shut down. The Israeli president has said India can raise its voice for peace in the region. Israeli President Isaac Herzog has said India advocating peace and can definitely pursue the voice of reason and security for Israeli peace in the region. Asked if India can play a role to mediate, Isaac Herzog described India as a very important nation in the world. The Israeli president talked about the need to rebuild Gaza as a peaceful place. He spoke to news agency ANI. He also said Iran was behind the recent attacks on Israel, emphasizing Iran's clear threats against the economic corridor agreement, which includes Saudi Arabia, Israel, the United States and India. Listen in.
Well, one thing is clear. Israel must be guaranteed full safety of its citizens. Nobody in Israel will agree to go back to the pre-7th of October situation. We cannot be threatened, and you know what? Part of the issue is that we are also attacked from our north by Hezbollah, which is a huge terror organization that has taken over Lebanon under the arms of Iran. And the real empire of evil here starts in Tehran and spreads Islamic fundamentalism of the worst kind to the entire region. They have taken over Syria and Lebanon and Gaza, and now from Yemen we are attacked, and Iraq, and everybody should be very aware of evil effort to undermine the entire regional situation. Let me remind your viewers, about a month and a half ago or so, 2 months ago, in the G20 summit, where Prime Minister Modi was there, President Joe Biden of the United States announced a special corridor of energy and communications and business and science from Israel all the way down to India, through Saudi Arabia and the Gulf and Jordan. An amazing, amazing vision that connects all of us together, that will connect Europe to Southeast Asia and even America all the way to Australia. That's a grand vision. That gives India a huge strength on the way. But somebody decided that they want to derail this effort of inclusion of Israel and this huge peace vision of President Biden. Imagine and think who. At the end, this empire of evil of Iran is working extra hours to undermine any inclusion of Israel in the region and any peace process. India is a very important nation in the world. And it was my honor, my true honor, to speak at the joint session of the U.S. Congress in Washington in July, just a few weeks after Prime Minister Modi spoke. We believe that, India advocates peace. It's a very, very impressive, I would say, country, I mean, one of the greatest on earth. And India can definitely pursue the voice of reason and security for Israel and peace for the region.
But do you think India can play a role in this conflict to moderate or to mediate?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But I say that the day after, part of the issue will be how do we rebuild Gaza again? And how we make sure that Gaza is a safe haven and a peaceful place. That would be it. And then we can speak about doing business with the Mediterranean and having Israelis and Palestinians have a true dialogue. India has a lot to contribute to all these ideas.
Sir, is Israel ready for the two-front war? Like, as you mentioned, that you are facing attacks from north now, that is the Hezbollah. Do you think you are prepared, and are you going to escalate this war with Lebanon or Hezbollah?
No, we are not seeking to escalate. But what we are seeing is a phenomena which is outrageous. We are being attacked on a daily basis from Lebanon by Hezbollah and its proxies. We are retaliating. We are carrying out days of battle, but we haven't reached an all-out war, and we are not intending to. We don't want to, but if we are dragged, we are fully prepared. We have a huge army up north. We have a huge army down south, and we are ready for all developments. Our citizens were removed from the border, and it's not an easy issue now, tens of thousands, if not more. And we hope that it won't happen and that peace will return to the border. But we will have to find, and the world community has to undertake and find the ways and means to secure Israel's security and right to defend itself, and most importantly, not to be threatened by any enemy on the border. There is a Security Council resolution which was passed after the Lebanon War of 2006. It's number 1701, which makes clear how military forces cannot be on the border from the Lebanese side, and it's been violated for years. So we will have to discuss it, and of course, India's voice here is very important in the international community, as you also have soldiers in various peacekeeping forces.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has strongly condemned the death of civilians in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. In his inaugural speech at the Virtual Voice of Global South Summit, the Prime Minister condemned the 7th October terror attacks carried out by Hamas on Israel and said the Global South should speak in one voice on critical issues such as this.
भारत ने 7 अक्टूबर को इजरायल में हुए जघन्य आतंकी हमले की निंदा की है। हमने रिस्ट्रेंट के साथ ही डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी पर भी जोर दिया है। इजरायल और हमास के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में सिविलियंस की मौत की हम कठोर निंदा करते हैं। राष्ट्रपति महमूद अब्बास जी से बात कर हमने फिलिस्तीन के लोगों के लिए मानवीय सहायता भी भेजी है।
Israel's Chief of General Staff, Herzog Halevi, met with the ground forces inside Gaza and said the Israeli army was close to destroying the military system that existed in the North Gaza region. A video released by the Israeli army shows Halevi meeting with commanders in touring areas inside the Gaza Strip.
אנחנו די קרובים להשמיד את המערכת הצבאית שהייתה בצפון הרצועה. נשלים את זה, עוד יש לנו השלמות לעשות.
The Israeli Defense Forces have said they have clear information indicating a connection between Hamas activities in Al-Shifa hospital and the hostages. It's mentioned some new findings indicating a Hamas tunnel network under the complex. The forces are currently investigating laptops and other technological devices that were found at the medical center. The IDF has said it's found data at Al-Shifa hospital linked to one hostage, Ori Magidish, who was in fact recently rescued by the IDF, that is. They discovered pictures of Magidish from before she was kidnapped. This was found on a laptop at Hamas's Shifa command center. The IDF also says there is extensive additional data that it still needs to look into, and it will continue to make announcements as it gathers more and more details. Well, in the Al-Shifa hospital complex, IDF troops discovered a hidden booby-trapped vehicle with a bunch of weapons such as AK-47s, RPGs, sniper rifles, grenades and other explosives. Here's a report.
Okay, we are here in the city of Gaza, in the heart of the city of Gaza, in Shifa hospital, and this is what Hamas is trying to hide from you. We found a vehicle filled with ammunition, RPGs, AK-47s, we see handcuffs, knives, preparation for taking hostages from Israel on the attack of October 7th. As you can see, they were very well prepared, and where they're hiding all of this equipment is in a hospital, a place that's supposed to be for humanitarian aid. They have all this evil hidden here. As we can see, we are in the heart of the hospital. And this is where they choose to hide everything, because they know the IDF won't attack, the Air Force won't attack here. So they use the hospital as human shields.
The Israeli military has revealed that it's discovered a Hamas tunnel shaft and vehicles stocked with weapons in the Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital complex. The IDF says at this hospital, Israeli troops found an operational tunnel shaft and a vehicle containing a large number of weapons. The IDF says the new findings include videos and pictures of the tunnel and weapons. The discovery raises concerns about the use of civilian infrastructure by Hamas for military purposes in the ongoing conflict.
The army forces found underground shaft inside Al-Shifa hospital. The engineering forces destroyed the infrastructure. Also, we found in the hospital Hamas vehicle that was ready to be part of the October 7th attack, but did not go on the road, and inside it, huge amount of arms.
Israeli military has dropped leaflets in several neighborhoods of Khan Yunis, asking residents to evacuate amid fears of IDF's assault on southern Gaza intensifying. Residents in Kuza, Abasan, Bani Suhaila and Al-Qarara in eastern Khan Yunis have said Israeli planes dropped hundreds of leaflets ordering people to evacuate overnight. These cities house more than 1 lakh people, and they're now taking shelter at tens of thousands of camps, and they're now being asked to evacuate and move to other areas. Reports say the leaflet says Gazans must evacuate their places of residence immediately and head to known shelters for their own safety. It also warned that anyone near terrorist facilities will be putting their life at risk, and every house used by terrorists will be targeted. The Israeli Defense Forces have not confirmed whether they did in fact drop these leaflets. It's not clear where the residents are supposed to flee. According to the UNHRC, no part of Gaza is safe. Hamas tunnels are colloquially referred to as the Gaza Metro. Let's take a look at these Hamas tunnels to understand why neutralizing these is a key goal for the Israeli Defense Forces. The Hamas tunnel network in Gaza is around 500 kilometers long, with around 1,300 tunnels measuring 2 meters in length and width. The deepest tunnel lies at around 70 meters underground, but most are at least 30 meters underground. Hamas apparently spends $100,000 on every tunnel and has dedicated a team to build them. The tunnels give Hamas an edge in an asymmetric war over the Israeli Defense Forces, as radio, GPS and night vision equipment do not work inside these tunnels. The threat of gas emissions is another big worry. Here. Palestinian medics say they're increasingly afraid for the lives of hundreds of patients and medical staff at Al-Shifa, Gaza's biggest hospital, which is now cut off from all links to the outside world for more than a day. This after Israeli forces stormed the hospital.
Video shot earlier this week is the last the world has seen of some of the medical staff caring for hundreds of patients still trapped inside Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. Reuters journalists have been unable to reach anyone there for more than 24 hours. They were effectively cut off from the outside world as of Wednesday, after Israeli forces moved inside the facility.
This is the bag that we found.
Israel's military later released this video of rifles and flak jackets it said its soldiers found there. But it has so far produced no evidence of the vast Hamas headquarters that both it and Washington said was operating beneath Gaza's biggest hospital. The White House stood by its intelligence assessment about Al-Shifa on Thursday.
Grab and go.
Meanwhile, global alarm among humanitarian groups is growing. Al-Shifa is also hosting thousands of people displaced by weeks of Israeli airstrikes and artillery bombardments. The World Health Organization said it was trying to arrange a medical evacuation of about 600 patients inside Al-Shifa, including 27 in critical condition and 36 newborn babies removed from incubators for want of power because Israel has cut off fuel supplies.
The situation, the humanitarian and health situation in Gaza really is catastrophic.
Regional Emergencies Director Rick Brennan said there were many challenges, including negotiating safety guarantees with Israel's military and a lack of the fuel needed for ambulances just to bring out patients.
But there are a lot of security concerns. There are a lot of logistics constraints. Our options are rather limited, but we hope to have some better news in the next 24 hours.
Israeli forces have effectively shut down all hospitals in the northern part of the enclave and ordered the area's evacuation. Human Rights Watch warned hospitals have special protections under international humanitarian law. Israel has now dropped leaflets in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, ordering civilians to leave 4 towns on the edge of Khan Yunis. Atya Abu Jabal was among tens of thousands of displaced people in the area, now wondering where they're supposed to go next. Other residents said the area came under heavy bombardment overnight.
The United Nations is looking for ways to evacuate Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza, but options seem to be limited because of security and logistical constraints. The World Health Organization has said there are at least 600 patients, including 27 in a critical condition, who are still trapped inside Shifa hospital, which Israeli forces entered earlier this week following a days-long siege.
So we are looking at options for medical evacuation, but there are a lot of security concerns. There are a lot of logistics constraints. Our options are rather limited, but we hope to have some better news in the next 24 hours. Firstly, you need to secure security guarantees and safe passage for any convoy. Negotiations with the Israeli Defense Forces are being managed through the UN offices. Then we have to prioritize the patients who would be moved first. So we'd be looking at the most critically ill, and again, those neonates. So we're going to be working with the doctors and nurses in the hospital to do that prioritization and come up with a list and make sure that they have companions, that parents travel with the neonates. But that's been a difficult exercise because our communications with the hospital is cut off most of the time. The third issue, of course, is just the lack of fuel. And so the Palestinian Red Crescent Society says right now of the 25 ambulances they haven't had sufficient fuel to move north.
Reports indicate a surge in anti-Jewish sentiments on Chinese online platforms are on the rise, with individuals expressing support for both Hamas and Adolf Hitler while posting derogatory comments against Israel. Notably, despite China's typically stringent internet censorship, these offensive remarks are largely unchecked.
At this press conference in Europe, there is grief and anguish for Chinese Israeli women kidnapped in the October 7th Hamas terror attack. But in China, an interview by Noah Argamani's mother met with hateful responses online. The most liked comment said, "I don't want to pay attention to her." Even more anti-Semitic attacks have flooded China's strictly censored internet since the Israel-Hamas war erupted. On Weibo, a microblogging platform like X, some nationalist influencers with millions of followers compared Israel's bombing on Gaza to the Holocaust in World War II. Some comments praised the late German dictator Adolf Hitler and his persecution of Jews. And on a map widely used in China, only the city Jerusalem has been labeled. The country name Israel has disappeared. The Israeli embassy temporarily closed its comment section over abusive posts, and its diplomat publicly expressed disappointment. Chinese censors wipe out online content not approved by the government. Yet, anti-Semitic comments related to the October 7 terror attacks by Hamas have lingered for weeks.
After the 7th October terror attacks carried out by Hamas on Israeli soil, Israel's Arab community now confronts rising hostility and discrimination. In the midst of this tension, a Jewish-Palestinian initiative strives for understanding and unity, bridging ethnic divides. Listen in.
Since being displaced from the Jabalia refugee camp in the north, Hana Abu Zaid has been living in a tent in Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip. The 55-year-old has health problems, including severe asthma, which she has been suffering from for years. She needs to use her inhaler daily and can only do so by connecting it to a battery. There's no electricity here, and that's not the only hardship in the camp.
I have severe shortness of breath. The first thing that helps me is my device. But the temperature inside the tent is very high, and it's humid. And at night, I can't sleep. Whenever the neighbors use a fire to cook, it affects my breathing. I used to have a monthly appointment with the UN agency, and I used to receive monthly treatment.
The camp for displaced people is overcrowded. 27,000 people live here. With no adequate health facilities and no electricity, proper treatment is difficult. Several times a day, Hana has to walk to the charging station to recharge the battery for her inhaler.
When there's not enough power in the battery, I have to go and charge it. It's a distance of half a kilometer. Every 2 steps, I have to stop and rest. I use the inhaler at least 10 times a day. Maybe more than that. It's a really long distance for me. I'm tired. I need electricity. I need help.
There is a healthcare center inside the camp, but it's not equipped to provide all services that patients need. However, doctors and medical staff here try their best to give their patients as much care as they can with what they have at their disposal.
We receive dozens of medical cases because of environmental and water pollution and infections. That's in addition to the many cases of chronic diseases, like Hana, who suffers from asthma and angina and needs treatment on a daily basis. Our treatment is aimed at alleviating the severity of the chest pain that she suffers from.
Along with other displaced sick people, Hana Abu Zaid hopes to soon be provided with electricity inside the tent. Being able to charge and operate her inhaler here would make survival a little bit easier.
Demonstrators blocked the San Francisco Bay Bridge to protest against the Israel-Hamas war and called for a ceasefire in Gaza on Thursday. The protesters hoisted signs saying "Stop the genocide" and "No U.S. military aid to Israel" as they blocked the key commuter route in the city.
Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
Organizers say 200 people attended the demonstration, which also called for an end to U.S. military aid to Israel. Hundreds of police began to make arrests and lead protesters away in zip ties after the California Highway Patrol issued a dispersal order to the assembled group. Authorities have deployed tow trucks to remove protesters' vehicles blocking the bridge. Listen in to some of the reactions.
I got stuck in traffic, and I didn't know, what was going on for a while, and then I heard different things and saw the news, little news clips, and I have to say that I admire these people. I think they're incredibly brave. I agree with what they are saying about the genocide in Gaza. I think it's really a horrific war.
Nearly 7:41 this morning, reports came in of vehicles slowing and then coming to a complete stop. Westbound 80 on the Bay Bridge, just east of Treasure Island. This appears to be a very calculated movement based upon individuals having multiple layers of vehicles stopping and slowing traffic, with individuals getting out of their cars.
A group of activists took to the streets in South Korea's capital, Seoul, calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. The activists put on a display about 2,000 pairs of shoes on the streets of downtown Seoul, symbolizing the Palestinian victims killed in the ongoing violence. Activists hoisted signs calling for a ceasefire and could be heard chanting slogans like "Free Palestinians." All right, let's now get you some other news that we are tracking at this hour. Millions of Russian families are having to cut back due to the significant changes forced on Russian economy by the war in Ukraine and the myriad sanctions imposed by the West. Here's a report.
In grocery stores across Russia, prices have been soaring. Families are having to cut back as they grapple with high inflation caused by the war in Ukraine and a myriad of sanctions imposed by the West. Mother of two, Daria Stepanova, is among them.
One of my kids is 5, another one is a newborn, and I can see how much everything has become more expensive in the course of these 5 years. Pampers are 2 to 3 times more expensive now. Baby food is now 4 times more expensive.
She's trying to make ends meet on the 50,000 rubles, about $550 a month, that her husband earns. The ruble has fallen against the US dollar since the war began in February 2022, making the price of imported goods climb. And all this comes ahead of the 2024 election, where Vladimir Putin is expected to run again, in a move that would keep him in power until at least 2030. Official statistics show that over 15 million Russians are living below the poverty line. Russian economist Igor Lipitz says the situation is even worse than what the Kremlin reports. He estimates about 20 million people could be in or on the verge of poverty.
The indirect indicator of the situation with the income is the level of high debt ratio that is always discussed again if you take statistics of the Bank of Russia. It's all seen there, how many Russians have 2 or 3 loans, how many families spend not only 50% but around 80% of their monthly income. There are Russian regions where people have to give away 105% of their monthly income. 105. This is what real people's incomes are and how deep in poverty the Russian population lives. Russians are in deep trouble.
Some economists think the ruble could fall even further after the election.
News from Bangladesh now, which is set to conduct its general elections on the 7th of January, as declared by the Election Commission on Wednesday. The announcement was made amidst rising political tensions with the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, and its far-right allies such as Jamaat-e-Islami pushing for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation. They are advocating for a non-party interim government to oversee the elections. The ruling Awami League has rejected this demand, asserting that the elections will proceed under Premier Hasina's leadership. Hasina has also declined a dialogue proposal from the US and other Western nations, branding the BNP as a terrorist organization. Media reports say a nationwide crackdown resulting in the arrest of almost 8,000 opposition leaders and activists, including BNP Secretary General, have taken place in recent days. Bangladesh's main opposition parties allege the government is exploiting the judicial system to suppress criticism, employing mass arrests, raids and politically biased court cases. The administration under Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina refutes these allegations as the elections approach.
31-year-old Amjad Hussain begins most days with a visit to his lawyer. The political worker of Bangladesh's main opposition group, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party or BNP, is facing multiple court cases. Cases he claims are politically motivated. He has already been imprisoned 3 times during the last decade, according to him, on trumped-up charges. After discussing his options to prevent going to jail the 4th time, he heads to the Dhaka Magistrate Court. Here, Amjad and many other political activists are made to appear before a judge. A routine that the BNP workers say have taken over their lives, leaving them no time for political campaigning or to even earn livelihoods.
I have to be in court at least 3 to 4 times a week. I leave my home at 7 in the morning, and it takes me 3 hours navigating Dhaka's traffic to get to the court. After running around to the different courts all day, I'm done at about 6 p.m. And by the time I get back home, it is nearly 9 p.m. This leaves me with no time to make a living or spend time with my family. And this happens to me 3 to 4 times every week. What am I supposed to do in such a situation?
The BNP accuses the ruling Awami League of being behind the many thousands of court cases against their members. A political fight that BNP says is now being played out in the country's courts. As the election draws closer, BNP campaign workers gather to hold strategy meetings. The BNP is threatening to boycott the vote unless changes are made. Historically, elections were held under a neutral caretaker administration, but in 2011, Parliament under the ruling Awami League amended the law.
Perhaps neither side is willing to compromise, but if that's the case, then the situation is likely to grow more tense and perhaps more violent. In the end, it's the choice of the Bangladeshis whether a caretaker government is needed or not. But if elections proceed under the current election commission, then the government clearly has more work to do to convince skeptics that the election commission will operate in a nonpartisan manner.
But the Awami League say elections under its government will be free and fair. It also says the court cases are not politically motivated and rather accuses the BNP of political violence and human rights violations. As the accusations fly, many in Bangladesh believe the future of democracy in the country of 170 million people could be at stake.
The Spanish Parliament has voted to give Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez a new term in office after securing an alliance of political backers with an amnesty bill for Catalan separatists, something that has sparked protests across the country. The proposed amnesty bill for separatists in Spain has sparked weeks of protests across the country, and if the bill becomes law, it could clear up to 1,400 activists and politicians who have tried to have Catalonia secede from Spain.
A proposed amnesty bill for separatists in Spain that sparked weeks of protests across that country has now helped Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez secure another term in office. This was the moment that Parliament voted to keep Sanchez as the country's leader after he secured a political alliance between his Socialist Party and backers from smaller regional parties. The amnesty deal was part of those negotiations. If it becomes law, it could clear up to 1,400 activists and politicians who've tried to have the Catalonia region secede from Spain, peaking in 2017. Catalonia is the region that holds Barcelona. The bill's drawn protests and condemnation from conservative groups in Spain. The night before the parliament vote, The leader of the far-right Vox Party, Santiago Abascal, was seen at one protest. He's saying the Spanish government is attacking the Constitution and separation of powers and compares it to a coup. It's not yet clear when the bill would be brought to Parliament for a vote or when it would take effect, if it's approved.
An interesting story coming out of Austria, where the house and surrounding grounds where Adolf Hitler was born will now be turned into a police station housing up to 50 officers. Work to turn this house into a police station is scheduled to be completed by 2026.
Wir wissen, dass im 19. Jahrhundert die Familie Hitler hier gewohnt hat.
We know that the Hitler family lived here in the 19th century. On the ground floor, there was a restaurant, and the floors above contained rooms which were rented out to tourists, or possibly as mini apartments. That's not entirely known because only few documents exist. It is also not possible to say exactly where the Hitler family lived, whether it was on the first or second floor. There are also theories that they might have lived in the rear building.
It's a historical fact that Hitler was born in our city of Brno, and it will stay that way and remain in Brno's history books forever.
In a bold move, Starbucks employees staged walkouts across hundreds of US stores, demanding change and drawing attention to difficult work conditions.
Workers at this New York Starbucks store and hundreds of other locations walked off their jobs during a key promotional event on Thursday. They demanded improved staffing and schedules, the Workers United Union said on social media platform X. The walkout came on the coffee chain's Red Cup Day event, during which Starbucks hands out free red-colored reusable holiday-themed cups to customers on their coffee purchases. Edwin Palma Solis is a Starbucks barista trainer.
We want to make sure that we have a better pay, staffing, scheduling, and we have the right amount of hours to work because they've been improperly staffing us. And sometimes it just makes it harder for us to work. You know, sometimes we feel like we work for two people instead of one, and we're just tired. We're just really tired of overworking ourselves.
Starbucks said on Thursday its stores in the United States were open, adding that a few dozen stores were on strike. Red Cup Day has typically been a major driver of store traffic, with data from analytics company Placer.ai showing that visits to U.S. Starbucks stores on the same day last year jumped 94% over the daily average for the full year. Workers United, which represents more than 9,000 Starbucks employees at about 360 U.S. stores, has said the event was one of the most infamously hard, understaffed days, as drink orders pile up and employees end up on the receiving end of abuse from frustrated customers over long wait times. Earlier this month, Starbucks said it would raise hourly pay for its U.S. retail workers by at least 3% starting in 2024, which employees criticize, calling it tone-deaf, given Starbucks' 11% increase in fourth quarter revenue and the recent wage hikes won by auto workers.
All right, domestic news now. 5 terrorists have been killed in an ongoing security operation in the Kulgam district in Jammu and Kashmir. The police say the operation is now in its final stages and the area is being sanitized. The joint operation involving the Jammu and Kashmir police, the army and the CRPF began on Thursday after security forces received intelligence inputs regarding the movement of terrorists in the Samno pocket of Kulgam. The police say there is a possibility that the slain terrorists belong to the Lashkar-e-Taiba terror organization. This is the second major encounter in 2 days in Jammu and Kashmir. On Wednesday, security forces had thwarted an infiltration attempt after they killed 2 terrorists in the Uri district.
कल दोपहर को सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस को एक इत्तला मिली थी कि समनू कुलमकाम में कुछ टेररिस्ट की मूवमेंट की आशंका है। तो उसी सिलसिले में उस समनू कुलगाम में कुछ घरों का मुहासरा किया गया था। मुहासरे के दौरान जब सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस जब उसको सर्च कर रहे थे तो वहां से अंदर से फायर आया और उसके बाद एक एनकाउंटर की शुरुआत हुई। तो ये एनकाउंटर अभी जारी है, फाइनल स्टेजेस में है और सैनिटाइजेशन की जा रही है। अभी तक की ताज़ा जो स्थिति के हिसाब से इसमें 5 जो हैं लश्कर तोयबा के जो टेररिस्ट की संभावना है और कुछ बॉडीज साइट हुई हैं। चूंकि अभी ऑपरेशन सैनिटाइज हो रहा है और उसकी बाकी जो शिनाख्त और बाकी तफसीलात हैं वो आपको उचित समय पे शेयर की जाएंगी। अभी एक जो सिक्योरिटी अफराद था उनको हल्का सा थोड़ा सा स्मॉल इंजरी थी। इट वाज नॉट फैटल, इट वाज स्टेबल।
Rescue teams are in a race against time to free 40 construction workers who are trapped under debris for more than 120 hours now after a tunnel collapse in Uttarkashi. Here's a look at all the latest developments on the rescue operations. Rescuers have brought in state-of-the-art American-made horizontal dry drilling equipment with auger and have commenced drilling an escape passage. Deepak Patil, leading the rescue operation, has expressed optimism about the success of the current plan, saying there are high chances of Plan B being successful. It's a matter of a few hours. The timeline remains uncertain because of the potential obstacles such as boulders and the debris, as has been pointed out by many experts. Despite the challenges with loose debris, those leading the rescue operations say they're quite hopeful that the results will be positive, and they estimate that drilling through 50 to 60 meters of piled up debris could take around 12 hours. Union Minister of State for Road Transport and Highways, V.K. Singh, after assessing the operation, has given an assurance that the government and all agencies are dedicated to completing the rescue within 2 to 3 days. Officials have established a 6-bed makeshift health facility and 10 ambulances with expert doctors positioned outside the tunnel for immediate medical care once the trapped workers are evacuated. The American auger drill is expected to cut through 70 meters of rock, a substantial amount of which fell during the rescue operations. The machine operates at a theoretical speed of 5 meters an hour and is expected to complete the task in 12 to 15 hours. Authorities plan to bore through the rock and create an 80-centimeter passage for the trapped laborers to crawl through. In the event of incapacitation or injury, the National Disaster Relief Force says we can use stretchers and harnesses to bring the workers out. Since the rescue efforts began on Sunday following the collapse of a section of the tunnel roof, multiple challenges such as rockfalls have impeded progress. The recent incidents have extended the blocked portion's length from an initial 40 to 50 meters to an estimated 70 meters. Auger machines are used for laying horizontal pipes without digging trenches. Auger machines initially utilized failed to achieve the desired outcome. The American auger has now been requisitioned from Delhi. The new machine was flown to Uttarkashi for the rescue operations. The new machine has been brought to the under construction tunnel site now. But let's not forget that there are challenges involved. The rescue operation is difficult because of the condition of the soil. The soil at the site of the mishap is loose and boring needs to be carried out with extreme care to prevent any further collapse. The situation in Nuh in Haryana is tense once again, this time after a case of stone pelting at some women who were going for Kua Puja. Stone pelting took place on the roof of the madrasa of the Badi Masjid complex, following which there was tension between the two communities. However, as soon as a complaint was received, the police say they controlled the situation and brought the two parties together to talk about the entire issue, and they say that the two parties have now calmed down. The aggrieved party has given a written complaint, though, to the police demanding action. At least 3 women were injured in the stone pelting. The police say they have received a formal complaint, following which an FIR was registered.
यहाँ पे अभी शाम को कुछ महिलाएं कुआं पूजन की तरफ से जा रही थी, तो मदरसे की यहाँ से शिकायत मिली है कि मदरसे की तरफ से कुछ बच्चों ने उनके ऊपर पत्थर फेंके हैं, जिसके मामले में दोनों समुदाय के लोग यहाँ पे इकट्ठे हो गए हैं। तो पुलिस ने अभी समझा, इसके बाद में दोनों पक्षों को अलग अलग अपने अपने घरों को भेजा है और जिनके खिलाफ भी ये महिलाओं के खिलाफ ये आया है तो उसमें हम FIR दर्ज कर रहे हैं। और जो अक्यूज हैं वो जो मदरसे के मौलवी हैं उनको बुलाया गया है, उनको भी अभी तुरंत ही राउंड अप कर लिया जाएगा और हम कह रहे हैं कि लोगों से अपील की शांति बनाए रखें, जो भी कानून है अपना तुरंत और त्वरित कार्रवाई होगी और उचित कार्रवाई होगी।
Tensions have risen in the Nuh district of Haryana after a community rallied for market closure. Security forces are stationed around the mosque. My colleague Abhijit has this ground report.
हरियाणा के नूह में कल शाम हुई पत्थरबाजी के बाद कुछ महिलाएं घायल हुई, कुछ लोगों को चोटें आई। उसके बाद यहां पर एक बार फिर से तनाव जैसा माहौल दिखाई दे रहा है। इस वक्त हम नूह के मेन मार्केट में मौजूद हैं और आप देख सकते हैं कि समुदाय विशेष के लोग यहां पर ग्रुप में निकले हैं और समूह में निकलकर बारी बारी से दुकानदारों को अपील कर रहे हैं कि वो अपनी दुकानें इस विरोध में बंद करें। मस्जिद के ऊपर से पत्थरबाजी की बात कही जा रही है, जिसके बाद यहाँ पर प्रशासन ने सुरक्षा भी चाक चौबंद कर दी है, लेकिन एक समुदाय विशेष के लोग समूह में निकले हैं और आज और घटना के विरोध में आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पर दुकानों को बंद करने की अपील की जा रही है और कुछ दुकानें यहाँ पर बंद होती हुई भी आपको दिखाई देंगी। तो इस तरह का एक माहौल एक बार फिर से नूह में यहाँ पर दिखाई दे रहा है, जो कि कल शाम की घटना के बाद हुआ है। बताया जाता है कि एक परिवार जिसकी महिलाएं, एक समुदाय विशेष की महिलाएं कुआं पूजन के बाद घर को लौट रही थी, जिनके ऊपर पत्थरबाजी की गई, कुछ बच्चों ने पत्थर चलाए, जिसके बाद दोनों समुदाय के लोगों के बीच में एक शिकायत भी हुई। उसके बाद पुलिस प्रशासन भी यहाँ पहुँचा, सुरक्षा चाक चौबंद कर दी गई मस्जिद के बाहर। लेकिन आज एक बार फिर से तनावपूर्ण स्थिति लग गई है और आपको हम बाज़ार की तस्वीरें अगर दिखाएं तो बहुत सारी दुकानें आपको यहाँ पर शटर बंद दिखाई देंगी। तो शटर बंद दुकानें भी आप देख सकते हैं कि बारी बारी से दुकानों पर जाकर लोगों से अपील कर रहे हैं कि इस घटना के विरोध में यहाँ पर दुकानें बंद करें और जो लोग इस बात को मान रहे हैं वो दुकानें बंद भी यहाँ पर करते हुए दिखाई दे रहे हैं। तो एक बार फिर से इस तरह की स्थिति, हालांकि पुलिस ने अपने हिसाब से जगह जगह सुरक्षा व्यवस्था भी की है, लेकिन बाजार में फिर से लोग एक बार आकर और लोगों से बाजार बंद करने की अपील करते हुए दिखाई दे रहे हैं।
Well, that's all the time we have on this edition of News9 Live. Thanks so much for watching and do stay tuned for the latest news updates.
News9 big coverage of